Welcome everybody to what is the first in hopefully many live streams from the newly rebranded Football Coaching Academy. I'm Jamie, and sat across from me is Kevin, not virtually across from me, is Kevin, who will be talking us through the game model today, and we're going to venture into lots of different topics over the course of the next few weeks. But we are today going to concentrate on not only what the game model is and how it can be practically used, but how that links into the course that we've got on our platform as well in the classroom, and how you can use that as coaches. So hello, Kevin, welcome. Let's get straight into it. So in simple terms, and I think sometimes there can be a little bit of, not fear is probably the wrong word, but there can be a little bit of anxiety maybe around what might be defined as elite level terms, or they might see terms like a game model and think that's for academies only or professional clubs only. Can you just take 2 minutes just to really simply describe what is a game model and sort of how can a coach use it in any level of the game?
Yeah, of course. Game model is just a term, right? It's just a label. You can call it a development framework, a curriculum framework, but for the purposes of today, I'll call it a game model, and I'll stick to the term game model as much as possible. So what it actually is a game model is it's a blueprint for how you want to play football, essentially. I always think of it like an architect's plan for a house. Without it, you're just kind of throwing bricks together and hoping for the best. Jamie, just as an aside, I don't know if you've ever seen that Simpsons episode where Homer buys a brick barbecue, and he gets home, he opens the box, the barbecue and the instructions fall out the box, and the instructions are ruined. I think they're covered in cement or something. So he just kind of throws the bricks together, and he ends up with a complete mess that has no cohesion, no structure. And that's kind of like how we operate as football coaches sometimes. I think I don't really mean any disrespect to anyone when I say that, because coaching itself is like really, really difficult.
We're all guilty of it. Yeah,
but the game model kind of aims to move away from that unstructured learning and approach into something that is more defined, and it's an overarching vision that kind of guides everything you do as a coach. For me personally, it answers 3 crucial questions. What do you want your players to be able to do at different stages of their development? When should they be able to do it by? So it should be tied to age as well as stage. And how do you teach them to do it consistently so that learning sticks? And those 3 questions are really, really, really important, because without a clear game model, you're coaching by accident rather than design, in my opinion. Players are getting confused, they're getting mixed messages, your sessions can lack a bit of purpose, and development becomes random. And I think that's especially true if you're just copying sessions off of YouTube, off of Twitter, other social media outlets that just don't connect week to week. The sessions don't connect week to week, that is. So with the game model approach, everything connects. Your warm-up links to your main session, which links to your match preparation, which links to your long-term player development. So just to sum what I've said up, I think I like this phrase a lot. I use it a lot, but a game model takes the hope out of coaching, and it turns it into a methodical process that develops all players at each age and each stage of their individual development by building on the last stage. It really is learning gold dust from a teaching point of view.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I love the word hope, to be honest, because I think, and again, I've certainly been guilty of this in the past, especially in the early years, of you're very reactive to what happened on the Saturday before or the Sunday before, and trying to fix those mistakes. And then the next Saturday, you're trying to fix those mistakes, and you just end up in, like you say, a really jumbled mix of session plans and training plans. And then it's the YouTube to try and find a drill that solves this problem. So that's really, really clear. Thank you. Practically though, so let's talk about so that's the what it is. So how would a coach use it? So if you think of the structure of a week, and let's assume that we are maybe an adults team that's a step 5 team, they're training once a week, game on a Saturday, probably game on a Tuesday, training on a Thursday maybe. So what would a coach's rhythm and cadence of the week look like using a game model?
Well, the game model that I've designed it covers 16 weeks, so it's 4 exercises in an hour-long session. That's the approach that I've gone for. So the sessions themselves are designed in a way where you're learning a theme or a topic or a principle. It just depends on the different stages of the game model, but you're learning something, or your players are learning something, you're not learning something, and then the week after you're learning something different, and then the week after that you're returning to the initial core concept. So you're learning, forgetting, and then learning again, and that strengthens the learning. So this work that I've done has been heavily influenced by people like Doug Lemov and his book on the Coach's Guide to Teaching. When I read that book, it kind of changed my coaching life, because I understood immediately the scientific way that people, players learn and how to teach them. So that's the structure of it. So it's very prescribed. My game model is very prescribed in that manner, in terms of the 16 weeks, the 4 exercises, the session a week. But that's at a high level. So your individual team's needs and your individual coaching needs and your individual players' needs will be different to that. So it's kind of like a recipe book. It's giving you a framework. It's giving you guidance. You can totally lift it and just implement it. But I would suggest that you study it, you learn from it, and you adapt it to meet your players' needs, your equipment needs, your training needs. You have different facilities. So in terms of how it's implemented, that's completely flexible, but that's how it would look on paper.
It's such an interesting concept, though, from Doug's book of letting them forget. I've just started the book a couple of weeks ago, and it's sort of one you have to put down and pick back up again and refer back to. But I mean, that's a really interesting point in the game model, though. So if you're a coach, and from your perspective, if you've landed one of, say, week 2 of a particular part of the session and you didn't think it landed as well as it should have done, is your recommendation then to move on to the week 3, let them forget, and then come back to the session later on? Or would you, I suppose a coach's temptation might be is to repeat that session again the next week, maybe, just to make sure the points landed?
Yeah, I would, if players are struggling, I'm not talking about really struggling, I'm talking about they're a little bit stretched and they're struggling, and the sessions maybe not being as fluid as you would expect, I would then move on to the next session in the game model, because every 16 weeks, or if you train twice a week, it'll be every 8 weeks. You will return to that session, and when you return to that session, it will be completely different. I don't think there's anything wrong with the session itself. If it goes wrong, it's maybe the players have spent the majority of the session learning the exercises within the session instead of the core principles or what you are asking them to learn. So if you repeat that at different periods, that there's less time learning the drill and there's more time spent on learning the principle. So that's the beauty of the game model and how it's prescribed. And it spirals the learning. So again, you're forgetting, you're learning, you're forgetting, you're learning. And it's around age and stage appropriate topics. You're not racing ahead to the future, and you're not copying something that PSG are doing in training that you saw on YouTube that's way above your team's ability. It's tied to the stage they're at, and it's saying that you need to master that stage before you move on to the next stage, because the next stage builds on the previous stage. And the learning from one stage flows into the next. And it is a complete framework from 1 year old, even less than 1 year old. I've coached, 10-month-old, coached 10-month-old kids. But,
that sounds like chaos.
Yes, it is chaos. And, I've coached 70-year-olds as well. And I think that has a clear plan. And the game model has been built, Jamie, it's not to develop elite players, right? And it's not even to get players into academy football. I think as coaches, as a coaching cohort, I'm going off on a tangent here, but as a coaching cohort, we're obsessed with elite. We're obsessed with teams. We're obsessed with elite coaches and elite players. And if I've got a group of 10-year-olds that I coach on a Saturday morning, is it my job to make them an elite team? Probably not. Is it my job to make them an elite player or get them into academies? Probably not. It's my job, I feel, to get them to still be playing football at 11 years old. And when they get to 11 years old, they've got an age and stage appropriate learning for a 10-year-old that they can then take into 11-year-old. Yeah. Then when they get to 12 years old, same thing. They're still playing football, because the drop off in football players from, the early stage into teenage years and then teenage years into senior football is really alarming. And that's the referees, the coaches, the walking footballers, the over 35 footballers of the future. And if we're not giving them age and stage appropriate learning, how do we expect them to progress into senior football or into coaching or into refereeing or anything else that's football related? Because football has so much to give. And sometimes I think that we are forgetting that, and we're so obsessed with elite that we want to be elite, or we want our team to play like elite teams. And I've coached over 1,000 players, Jamie. Do you know how many elite players I've coached? None. Do you know how many? Do you know how many professional players I've coached? Probably less than 2%. You know, so it's rare. It's rare to make professional football. It's even rarer to be elite. So for me, age and stage is really, really important, and it's not jumping too far ahead. So kind of went off on a tangent there, but
no, it's good. It's a really interesting point. And I think there's an underlying point there. I think as coaches as well, and certainly new coaches, you'll design a session, and when it starts falling apart or chaos ensues during the session, panic comes in, and you get frustrated because it's not looking beautiful like it did on YouTube or exactly how it should look on Instagram. But chaos is a good thing, because football's a chaotic game, right? So that's where we earn our money as well, and that's where we come in, and that's where the coaching points come in and the interventions. So we should embrace that. Yeah,
and Jamie, I'm not criticizing any coach here, because you know what? Everything that online looks beautiful, and everything in an elite training environments looks beautiful, but they don't have 20 kids who've just come straight from school and they've had a sugar snack on the way to training, and then 20 sets of parents behind them watching them and criticizing them and judging them. So coaches have a very difficult job, and I think it's the job of experienced coaches like myself and yourself to help other coaches along in their journey, so they don't make the same mistakes that we do, because all of this stuff that I'm talking about is based on experience and making mistakes.
100%. Good. All right. Really good points, well made. Let's jump into the course that we've got in the classroom. So this resource that we're talking about now, so we have talked about what the game model is, but we have a game model ready and available for all the coaches on our SKOOL platform to take and enjoy and use in a practical sense. So in the classroom, we have 3 sections within the game model currently. We've got Master the Ball, ages 1 to 11. We've got Master the Opponent, ages 7 to 12. And then we've got Master the Game, 12 to 18. Can you just talk us through the purpose of each one of those sections and how you might see a player develop through those different sections?
Yeah, of course. So kind of alluded to it already. The 3 stages, the 3 mastery stages, they form the core progressions that I feel every player must go through, regardless of their age or their ability or when they start playing football. So Master the Ball is where everything starts. So before a player can make decisions under pressure, I feel they need technical competence. Michael Beale calls it a technical hard drive. I think it's a fantastic phrase. This isn't juggling. This isn't messing around with the ball. It's functional ball mastery. Can they receive with both feet? Can they change direction quickly? Can they strike the ball cleanly? And in practical terms, I think you'll see players who once struggle with their first touch now being able to manipulate the ball with both feet after doing some ball mastery. I think every coach who does that sees that, and players become comfortable in tight spaces. They're confident to try skills. Their passing improves. The whole game improves. And at this stage, we play a lot of small-sided games, and we do a lot of ball mastery. That's what's prescribed in the game model. And the primary goal of Master the Ball, and I feel it is the most important stage, it's to enable players to escape from pressure and outplay their opponents. So again, a lot of ball mastery, a lot of small-sided games. So by learning to control the ball, by learning to manipulate the ball, players are better equipped to execute the actions that are necessary to succeed on the pitch. But there's limitations to ball mastery, right? Because I feel like ball mastery in isolation doesn't teach players the how, the where, the when. So they don't understand the context of when to apply that skill during a game. But that's okay, because Master the Ball lays the groundwork, the foundation. It ensures that players have the tools that they focus on at this stage in order to then proceed into the tactical or 1v1 elements of the next stage. And the next mastery point is Master the Opponent. As you say, it's 7 to 12 years old. And that introduces more. It's not to say that there aren't opponents at Master the Ball. There are opponents at Master the Ball, but Master the Opponent particularly focuses on the human element. We add pressure, we add decision making, we add 1v1 situations, and we heavily focus on those situations. So Players learn how to read opponents' body language, for example. They learn how to exploit weaknesses. They learn how to understand space and time. And practically, is my camera gone off, Jamie? Sorry.
It has, mate. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know where it's gone. I'm sorry, folks. Hopefully it comes back again. But practically, what was I going to say? You'll notice players who used to panic under pressure, they're now staying calm under pressure. They know what to expect. They're not just resetting to the default of kicking the ball away or whatever they reset to under pressure. So they start winning more duels, they start creating more chances, they start defending more intelligently. And they're not just technically good players, they become tactically aware. And we do this by introducing a framework, which is called the moment, slice, and situation framework. The moment of the game is defined, is the player attacking, defending, or transitioning? The slice of the pitch, where are they? Are they in the defensive third, the middle third, the final third? And which situation are they in? What's happening around the player? Is the opponent in front of them? Is the opponent behind them, to the side of them? Or is it just pure chaos? And I think that determines the 1v1 skills they need to win the duel. So by linking the 1v1 to the moment, the slice, and the situation, I feel the game model turbocharges 1v1 work. It creates a better learning framework for players to apply their technical skills in more realistic situations. And lastly, sorry, this is such a long answer.
No, it's good.
The game is just sort of where it all comes together for me. This is team tactics. This is understanding roles and responsibilities. This is playing for the collective rather than just the individual. This is more of our 2 and 3 and 4, 5 player combinations. And players begin to see those patterns. They begin to anticipate movements and they make the decisions that benefit the team. And I'm not saying we coach the patterns because I don't particularly like that. I'm not a fan of that. But they start to see them through small-sided games and through 1v1 work. And you'll see improved positioning, better communication, and those sort of magic moments where everything clicks and the team plays as one unit in those combinations. So Master the Game also uses an 11-a-side moment, slice, and situation framework, but that's linked to the phase of the game. So in possession, out of possession, transition to defend, transition to attack. So when you're teaching players about the phases of the game, you're linking it to the area of the pitch and then how to escape pressure in that area or finish the attack or win the ball back as a unit rather than just individually. So as I said earlier on, each stage kind of builds on the previous one. You can't master the opponent without first mastering the ball, and you can't master the game without understanding the individual technique and the 1v1 principles that you need to do that.
Brilliant. Thank you. So coaches, if you go into our classroom, that is available now. You can actually see that right now. You can use that right now and practically take that from next week, or take it now and use it from next week, your next training session, and really implement it. But I would really encourage that you just take the time to have a look, try and digest some of that information. And as always, me and Kevin are available to speak to if you have any questions or want to speak about it. What I think I really love about that, and the one bit that I really take out of it is there's lots to take out of it, but the moment slice situation. I think not just in a standalone game model situation, which you've implemented, I think that really changes the way you think as a coach. And I don't think everybody would think that way or naturally think that way until you're taught to think that way. And I think it adds so much more value to the training development of players because it's real and it feels real to a particular game scenario. I think that's a really useful piece of information. Spoiler alert, there's more to come in the game model. So there's 3 more sections that Kevin's working through at the moment. Master the position, master the match, and master the self. Can you just give us a quick top line of what coaches could expect from those 3 sections and how they build on what we've talked about already?
Yeah, Jamie. So I've already said this on the community, but this is my baby. So I don't want to rush through and just deliver the whole thing. And it's substandard. And I appreciate the game model that we have is huge. It's absolutely huge at the moment, but it has to be in depth because it covers a number of years of a player's development. So the final sections, they take players from good to exceptional. They are the 11-a-side frameworks that you need to then ensure that players go from their teenage years into senior football and then into walking football. Essentially, we will stop at the end of a senior career, but I'm hopeful that it helps players then continue on into the next stage. So master the position is essentially It's specialization. So it's understanding specific roles within a team structure. And I think coaches will get a lot of value from master the position from a learning point of view and a teaching point of view, because every position on the field has unique demands. You know, a centre back needs different technical skills and tactical understanding compared to a winger, for example. So this stage develops position-specific expertise in players. It kind of maintains the foundation from the first 3 stages and then builds on that. So players take their technical and tactical understanding from everything I've talked about, space and time understanding, into their role to understand what's required and understand what's needed, to excel in their position. So that's that module. Master the match. Something that I think is completely undercoached and undertaught is game management, adaptability, reading the flow of matches. I talk about this a lot when I'm watching matches with my team. Games go through different flows, so you need to understand when to speed up. You need to understand when to slow down. Your goalkeeper needs to understand that maybe I'll take another 10 seconds with my goal kick. Maybe not in the hands because the rule's changing, but so you need to recognize momentum shifts. So you need to make in-game adjustments. Now, coaching staff cannot stand at the sideline and scream at players every second of the game on how to manage the game. So players need to develop that football intelligence that separates good players from great ones. And they're not just executing a game plan at that stage, they're adapting based on what's happening in the game. So master the match is essentially that module. It's a really good module, and I really can't wait to finish it. And lastly is the psychological module, which is master the self. Again, undercoached, underutilized. It covers confidence, resilience, leadership, self-awareness, all of the soft skills that players require to manage pressure, to bounce back from setbacks, to influence other teammates positively. And players need to understand their own strengths and weaknesses, and they can manage their own emotions thereafter. So that's that module. And together, the 6 stages will help create footballers. Again, not elite footballers, not even professional footballers, but just players that are technically sound, tactically intelligent, physically prepared, and mentally strong. So they understand their role in the team, and that's been backed by that comprehensive development pathway that takes players from beginners to senior footballers. That's my whole motivation for the game model, and that's basically what the 6 modules will end up doing.
It sounds incredible. I'm particularly looking forward to Master the Match. That sounds brilliant. And I don't think, I'm just like hearing you speak about all of those 6 modules in depth. I've seen already what's in the first 3 modules. I'm really excited about what's to come in the next 3. I don't think I've seen a piece of work online, or I don't think I've seen anybody try and do a piece of work as robust and as in depth. Certainly not available to such a wide audience as we've got in the community right now. So a hugely valuable piece of work already. It's going to be even more valuable and more well-rounded in the future as well. So yeah, really, really good piece of work. And everybody can access that, included in the membership right now in the classroom. Just clicking there. I think it's the 3rd tile along on the top row. So go and have a look if you haven't already.
Sorry to interrupt, Jamie, but people in the call right now and people who see this later may actually think, so how does Kevin know all this? How does he understand all this? Is he just making it up? But this has been backed with experience, because I have worked with so many players, so many teams, and I've worked with everyone from 1 year old all the way through to 70 years old. So I have a good understanding of what is required. I've also researched a lot of football related topics around this. So it's based on my experience, which is always going to be limited because it's your experience, but also other people's experience and scientific fact as well. So hopefully people understand that concept and where I've come from and why the game model has been built.
That comes through really clearly as you talk about it, to be fair, Kev. Right, we're going to circle round now just to a broader game model topic. We've got, 5-6 minutes left, so we're going to touch on a few more broad topics. But I think one question that came to me and that I wanted to pose to you that might be asked is, do game models, so you've had a professional experience, or you've been around big clubs as well, is that an individual thing per coach, or would that be given to you by the club? Is there a certain amount of autonomy to be able to implement your own game model within a club, or do you think that should come from the club, from the top line?
Oh, JB, that's a great question. So in professional football, I think it should come from the club, right? So the club should have a philosophy that runs from the first team all the way down to the first youth level that they have. Should.
It's not unheard of that it's not.
Well, some clubs are really, really good at it, and some clubs are not. I'm not going to disparage any club because it's difficult. Football is difficult. In grassroots football, which is, I primarily want to help grassroots coaches and coaches working at that level. I think it's often up to the individual coach to create and implement their own model. So I kind of recognized that reality when I was at the Arbroath Football Club Community Foundation. We had different grassroots clubs in the area doing different things, and even teams within those clubs were doing different things, and it wasn't connected. So I'm a consultant by trade, so I can go in and I can see these things really, really quickly when it's not cohesive, when people and players and coaches don't have clarity. So I tried to bring in a game model at that stage. I used an external consultant to help with that, so it wasn't just me and my opinion again going into these clubs and pushing it on them. And most of that work and most of this work has been heavily influenced by the external consultant, and the 1v1 work that I've talked about has been influenced by people like Willie McNabb in the Celtic Academy and Stephen Gillespie in the Youth Academy at Liverpool. And their work on 1v1s is unrivaled, so it would be silly for me not to take that into consideration. So they've all influenced the work. It's available to all coaches now as a practical tool to implement immediately. In terms of your question, I think the key is having something rather than nothing is the best approach. And what we've provided in our community is something. And it's probably more than something. I'm probably doing it down. But, a well thought out individual game model is infinitely better than no model at all, right?
Yeah.
So if you're an individual coach at a grassroots club and you're listening to this right now and you think my club has nothing, if you were to take the game model in the community and implement it in a structured manner at your team, you'll find that other coaches in your club become interested in that. And then everyone wants to align to your methods because you will start seeing the benefit on the park. So grassroots coaches, it's more difficult, and it has to come from individuals, I feel, because I don't think clubs are structured or they have the resources or the money to go out and do it at a club level, an organization level. But professional clubs has to be the club, because you have to have the first team manager's opinion, and it has to flow from there, because he knows the requirements of his first team, and that should flow from there. The youth level should be learning what the first team requires.
Yeah, really interesting. And I think it's a really good point to say the focus is probably primarily on the grassroots coaches, because that's the bulk of the audience. And I think the underlying theme is just getting away from being reactive and being on the front foot and being really proactive with what we're trying to do and how we're trying to develop our players. We have a couple of minutes left, so I'm just going to finish on this question. I think the most familiar bits of any game model that coaches might be familiar with, having not seen a full one in the past, maybe the 4 moments of a game: in possession, out of possession, the transition from attack to defense, and transition from defense to attack, and how we show up at those times. You do go into that in depth within the game model currently. Was there not a temptation to deliver that earlier in the game model course at a younger age, or do you think it sits well where it is at the moment? The only reason I'm asking that question is because it feels like such an important part of the game to understand and to be to show up really well in those transitionary moments, especially. Was there a temptation to have it earlier, or do you think what's the defined reason about it being at that part of the course?
So I think it is in there earlier, maybe not in the way you've described it. I think it's in there earlier in an age and stage appropriate manner.
The theme flows through.
Yeah, so it doesn't do it on a tactical level, right? In the early years, it doesn't do it. I mentioned this already. It does it in a 1v1 manner. So when players are at the level of 3v3, 5v5, 7v7, 9v9, 1v1s are key in all moments of the game. I have a particular focus on defending and attacking. So I feel it's important to place players in common scenarios so they can become better 1v1 technical players in those games. So in the model, I've sliced the pitch into 3 distinct areas from a defending and attacking point of view. This is at the younger age group. Sorry, Jamie. So defensively, the 3 areas are defensive third, middle third, final third. Offensively, it's building the attack, creating the attack, and finishing the attack. So as mentioned this earlier on as well, so in those areas, we'll paint the situation for them. So if you're in the middle third, your opponent's to the side, in the 1v1 process, if we paint that moment for them and the slice of the game, where they are on the pitch and the situation, then we help them identify the skills that they need to make better decisions 1v1, which should lead to more success. So the key is it's age appropriate complexity. It's not the 4 phases of the game, but it's age appropriate. So an under 8 player might understand when I'm trying to finish the attack and the opponent is to the side, I can escape pressure here by doing X, Y, or Z. They don't need to know if I lose the ball here, what's our counter-pressing structure? Or if I draw a press here and I can isolate our far side winger, what do I do in that situation? So give them the technical skills first. And then you give them the tactical understanding, which will develop in time.
And I think that really brings to life the layering of compound knowledge. So they've done it all already. They just wasn't maybe aware that they've been doing it, but the base level knowledge is there through the stages they've been through. Brilliant, mate. That was really, really good. Really, really interesting. I hope it was useful for coaches viewing this now and coaches that will watch the recording in the future. We are at time, unfortunately, but I would recommend that everybody goes and checks the game model out in the classroom. Please let us know what you think. Please let us know if you have any questions and would like to see anything different. The game model is Kevin's life work, and it really does scream through the experience that comes through in that piece of work. So check it out and let us know. And that's us for today. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you for being here. There'll be lots more of these to come, and we'll keep everybody across what's to come in the group. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks, everyone.